Hello, everybody. So nice to be here tonight. Welcome. Welcome to our workshop series, Thriving in Relationships. For some of you, it's week one. For some of you, it's week two, right? Because we had part one last week. But for the purpose of recording, it's week one because last week we're going to look at it as kind of a separate thing. We didn't start from the very beginning, and now we're starting from the very beginning. If you're joining here for the first time, you're in the right place, and we're starting from the ground up. I'm treating it as if it's part one. Okay, so let's get started with the following scenario, which is a true story. And I just want to mention that whenever I share a story, they're all true unless I tell you, and I will modify names and details so that it won't, you don't know anybody in the story. Okay, so there's a woman named Sarah. She sees an advertisement for a workshop designed for teenagers, a workshop about communication and social skills. And the presenter of the workshop is someone that Sarah knows. It's a woman in her community, a wonderful woman by the name of Adina. And the topic is very near to Sarah's heart. She likes what she sees, and she wants her daughter to join this workshop presented by Adina. So she asks her daughter's interested. Yay, go ahead, right? So she wants to register. She doesn't call Adina, even though she knows Adina. She calls the number that's on that advertisement. And when she calls, the secretary tells her, I'm so sorry, registration is closed. There's no more, your daughter can't join. And Sarah was, of course, very disappointed. By now, she was all excited about it. And being a good Yiddish mama, she thought, why shouldn't my daughter be able to join? I have Adina's number. Let me just call her and I'll ask her. I'm sure she'll be able to handle one more participant in her group. And if she says she can't, okay, at least I'll try. At least I'll know that I tried my best. So Sarah calls Adina. She makes that call. Adina picks up the phone on the first ring. They say hello, how are you? And then Sarah says, I really would like my daughter to join the workshop. I think she would benefit a lot from it. Do you mind? Do you think? But before she could even finish her sentence, Adina interrupts her and starts yelling at her, like really yelling at her. Don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. You're killing me. I can't have another kid in my class. I cannot. Don't even ask me. Just stop it right now. And the conversation was over quickly. And that was the end of the story. But really, such a conversation is never the end of the story. There's never an end to this kind of story because a relationship is a space between two people. And right now, Adina spilled a lot of boiling anger into a lot of negative energy into the relationship. And from Adina's perspective, by asking that question, Sarah put a lot of negative energy into the relationship. So that negativity is not going away so fast. It's kind of sitting between them, right? It's not going away, not for Adina and not for Sarah. The next time they meet at a simcha or on the street, there will be a little bit of awkwardness, like something, like an elephant between them or something unpleasant between them. Now, every person listening here tonight has had a similar experience. Maybe you were the one who was, asking a question or making a request and you were hit with an angry response that was disproportionate to your crime. Or maybe you were the person being asked by your child, by a workmate, by your husband, by somebody in your life. They asked you an innocent question or they said something and you felt angry or resentful. And even if you didn't say anything, you felt it boiling over. What happens when you're in a relationship where such things happen again and again? What's going on? How can we help ourselves and the people in our lives? And I know I'm coming in from just one angle of relationships, one little story, but I'm going to use this story to talk about something that will then apply to many, many different issues and will be the beginning of our discussion here. Okay, so let's take a closer look at what happened to learn something from this. We might say that Sarah should have been more respectful. When she got that no, she should accept it. There's someone set a boundary, and why was she pushing that boundary? Right? The secretary told her that she can't get into the class. Why'd she make that call? Or we might say that Sarah was perfectly justified in making that request, and she didn't deserve to be yelled at. I think that even whether or not it was wrong on her part or it was a justified phone call to make, I hope we all agree that she did not deserve to that yelling, and she didn't deserve that overreaction of anger, because she just made a request. And it was okay for, maybe it was annoying for Adina or bothersome. Adina had the absolute right to say no. But where did the yelling come from? How did it make any sense? And some people might say, well, you look at this, it's a communication issue, right? She never learned. And then the solution would be just teach Adina how to communicate better in a nicer way, how to say no tactfully and with more gentleness and kindness. But the thing is, the truth is that we said before, right? Adina was giving a course about communication. She not only knows the rules about and all the ideas about effective communication, she teaches it. She teaches it. This is what her master subject is. She's a very nice person, actually. She cares about other people, and she's understands communication very well. So her problem is not, I don't know how to communicate, therefore I yelled, because she knows how to communicate nicely, but she still yelled at Sarah. So what's her problem? In that particular moment, all her knowledge, all her skills went out the window. If you look at Adina walking down the street on a regular day, you see a master teacher, an expert in her field, a mature adult, a warm, kind person. And yet, in that moment, in that interaction, she was a mad woman. She was entirely different. She responded as if Sarah was killing her. She said, literally, stop killing me, stop doing this to me. She was, and meanwhile, Sarah didn't even attack her. But Adina reacted as if she was attacked. Why? Where did all her communication skills go? And where did all that yelling come from? And I don't want to just analyze this as a story that happened to somebody else. I would love for everybody here to make it personal and make it real and recognize that this story is not really about Adina and Sarah. Let's think about our own stories. Let's think about, of course, we've all been on the receiving end of a yelling we did not deserve. But let's also recognize that we were on the giving end of yelling or frustration or annoyance or overboiling of emotion that was unleashed on another person that they didn't deserve it. It was coming, somebody shared with me recently that, she worked very hard a whole day and she was it was such an intense, difficult day, and she was running and coming, and then she made supper and she worked and took care of the kids. And then she came home and right away went right into work at home and was serving supper to her children. And her husband walked through the door and joined the family for dinner. At the table, while the family was eating, her husband had washed his hands, sat down, and he said, "Can you please pass the salt?" And he said it to nobody in particular, but she was the one standing, and she blew up. Here I am working a whole day, and now you're telling me that the soup is not good enough? It's not even salted. You get up here. But after she realized, she had been in our group, she'd been doing this work for some time, and she realized that actually what happened was that a whole day she didn't take care of herself. She didn't stop to take a drink. She didn't stop to eat. And so when her husband asked her to pass the salt, that was like, you're not doing good enough. You need to do something more. Even the soup is not good. And that's what made her blow up with frustration. So that was her story. If you can think of your own story, think about the times you said something or you asked for something, or someone asked something from you and you exploded with anger and resentment and this overflow of emotion that really didn't reflect your rational, best, beautiful self. Because all of us would like to consider ourselves to be nice people. We're mature, we're grown up, we can handle disappointment, we can handle rejection. But then when we bump into our disappointments or frustrations, what happens? We lose it. We respond with behaviors that are really not what we want. We might say mean things, we might shut down, we might attack the other person, or we might take it all inward and just get into a bad mood because we're so upset and so hurt. And in those moments, where do our skills go? Where does our maturity go? Where does our communication go, right? What happens to us? The fact that we lose ourselves and we don't know what to do with ourselves, it's not because we don't have the communication skills. It's not because we don't know what the right thing to do is. We know what the right thing to do is. We know what we want to do. We just, in that moment, we lose it. We can't do it because there's something deeper going on inside of ourselves, something that triggers us to respond as if we are fighting for our survival, as if our very essence is being threatened. And this makes our logic and our skills disappear. And instead of showing up as the adult that we are, we act or we feel as if we're being smashed to pieces. And this happens especially with the people that we are most invested with our children, with our husbands, with the people, you know, our close relationships, parents, siblings, close friends. And maybe sometimes we do this because we're tired or stressed. And then this one thing pushes us over the edge, right? Maybe we haven't eaten all day. Maybe we're just running on too little sleep. And so this one thing pushes us over the edge. But when we're tired or stressed, there are certain things we never do, right? I might yell at someone, but I will never throw a seltzer bottle at them, even when I'm very tired. And somehow when people yell at each other or say mean things or shut down or get into a bad mood and get, you know, like really nasty, we kind of say, okay, it's not nice, but that's a whole different story when somebody would throw a broom at another person, chas v'shalom, or throw a seltzer bottle, or do something like put their hand into the wall and express their anger. Why? Because we don't excuse certain behaviors, we do excuse other behaviors. So being tired is not the excuse, right? Being tired is not the excuse. Something else is at play over here. Something else is happening. Something deeper is going on inside of ourselves, because life is so much more and relationships are so much more than what we see or what happens or even what we do on the outside. There's a whole world that we experience on the inside. And if we want to understand relationships so that we can make changes in our relationships, if we want to understand our behavior and our way of thinking so that we could show up as our best self in our relationships and that we could generate love and kindness and connection and positive energy that then fills the room and comes right back to us in return, we want to look inside. That's where we want to start looking. Because what comes first, the inside or the outside? What comes first? How we feel or what happens to us? Before doing the work that we're going to be talking about today, most people say that outside causes the inside, meaning what happens to us triggers our emotions. What happens on the outside makes us feel whatever we're feeling on the inside. They say that whatever happens to us causes our feelings. And the reason we think this is because if we look at ourselves from the outside, we only see the outside. We see what's happening to us. We see what people are saying. We see what people are doing. At the time of this story, Adina had zero awareness about her inside world and how her inside was causing her outside. If you would ask her to explain her behavior, you know what she would say, as I did? She would say, well, some people are just so difficult. In this line of work, you meet people who are just annoying. So what should I do? Of course, I'm going to explode. And I think we could all relate to Adina in that. I know that for me, before I learned any of the things that we're going to be talking about today, before I did any of the work that we're talking about, I never thought about where my emotions come or where they go. It was all a mystery for me. It was all part of the great unknown that I never really thought about at all. If we look at people and we look at ourselves from a surface level, there are no clues We don't understand it. All of this is just a very mysterious and strange experience. So we take it as a simple fact of life. And what's the fact? I'm human, I'm limited, and therefore I sometimes get stressed out, right? I'm human, and therefore I sometimes shut down. I sometimes say nasty things. I sometimes feel very bad because I'm human. So I get frustrated. And when I'm hurt or rejected or mistreated, yes, I will feel upset. I will feel resentful, and I might do things that I'm not proud of. You know why? Because I'm human. So that's one attitude, that we look at our behavior and we see that as a result of our emotions, and our emotions we see as a result of what happens to us. And so we say, and really we don't say this, we think this, it's stress, resentment, and misery is a natural, unavoidable, and unchangeable fact of the human condition. It's going to happen. I'm going to go through life, and when I meet annoying people, I will feel annoyed. When troubling things happen, I will feel bad, and eventually I'll erupt like a seltzer bottle, right? So that's one attitude that we take towards our emotions, that they're caused by other people. And to use the wording we used before, that my inside is caused by your outside, by your behavior, by your attitudes, by the things that happen to me. My inside is caused by my outside, right? The first one was, I have no idea. The fact is, I'm human, and therefore I will sometimes explode. And the second attitude we take is that, you know why I'm feeling bad? It's because that person or that thing made me feel bad, and therefore I did bad. Whatever situations or circumstances we find ourselves in, that's what triggers our emotions. Okay, when Sarah asked Dina if her daughter could join the class, what happened? For some reason, Adina felt very upset. And of course, she did not like feeling upset. So she blamed Sarah for making, in her mind, and it happened quickly, like really subconsciously, okay, this person is making problems. This person is making me feel really bad. And I don't like feeling bad. I'm being hurt, and she's holding the stick. So she yelled at Sarah, stop beating me up. Stop hurting me. Stop killing. Why are you doing this to me? Now, at different times, we all do this. We blame other people for our emotions. Adina was feeling bad. Sarah was the person who she was feeling bad around. So in her mind, Sarah was the cause of her emotions. She didn't think it could be something deeper inside of her own self. She was certain, without any doubt, that the reason why she feels bad is because Sarah did something wrong. Could you stop, Sarah? Could you just stop? And she never knew to look inside and say, well, maybe there's something going on inside of me that's making me upset, that has absolutely nothing real to do with Sarah. It's like I have a tape in my head and I have a boo-boo in my heart, and Sarah's question just pressed play on my self-hate. Sarah's question just rubbed against my open wound, something that's hurting me inside my own self. And that's why I felt so bad. She never thought that. She thought, if I'm upset, it's because this is upsetting. It's because the other person is upsetting me. If I am uncomfortable or intimidated, it's because something is wrong about that person, right? When my kids get upset, they're like, this is so annoying, or you're so annoying. You know, I've learned to say, well, actually, I'm not annoying, but I understand that you feel annoyed. I'm not an annoying person, but you feel annoyed right now, right? Imagine someone telling you that when you're annoyed. It's not what you want to hear. But you get my point, is that when we're annoyed, we feel that the reason we're annoyed is because the other person is being annoying, right? If I'm frustrated, it's because this is frustrating, and I will be frustrated until the situation changes because I can't help it. So let's review what we just said, okay? How is it that our mature adult self gets hijacked by behavior that we are not at all proud of? How could it be? Some people say it's just a fact of the human condition. Every adult will sometimes act like a baby. Every mature, responsible, thinking person will sometimes fall apart and act in a way that they're not part of, and that's not proud of. And that's part of the great mysterious unknown that are just unavoidable, unchangeable, part of our nature, part of being human. Okay. And some people might say something a little bit different. They say, I'm a person who is kind, I'm a person who is sensitive, I'm a person who is caring, but that person did something annoying and I had no choice but to feel annoyed. And it was so annoying that I even yelled. Now that's called blaming the other person for your emotions. That person caused my emotions and my emotions caused my behavior. All that, those two attitudes, either like the reason why I'm acting this way is just because I'm human, or the reason I'm acting this way is because somebody else caused me to. That's what we see when we look at ourselves from the surface, when we don't look inside. When I was a teenager and actually well into my young adulthood, this is how I lived. It was like being on a roller coaster, right? All the power in the world, all the buttons, the stop and the go, the speed, all of the power in the world was outside of me. It was with other people. They had the power to define me, to make me a good person or a bad person, to make me upset, to make me happy, to make me feel like a good girl or a bad girl. All the power was outside of me. All the power was with people and situations and things. And when I was looking for the cause of my behavior, it was always my emotions, right? Why did I do that? Because I was upset. And why was I upset? When I looked for the cause of my emotions, it was always events and situations, circumstances, and most importantly, it was people, other people. It was never myself. It was never my own heart. It was never my own mind. And living like that is really superficial. And I'm sure, and I know that many of you are at the place where I'm at now, where I can look back, where we can look back and say, wow, I used to have no awareness of my inside world, and now I do. And maybe some of you who are listening are hearing this concept for the first time, that our inside actually has a very big role in our outside. That when we tell the story this way, like Adina's story, half of the story is missing. So I want to give you a visual that might help to understand. And I just want to interject over here that if you're here and somebody gave you the Zoom login and you want to get future updates and notes about recordings, text or WhatsApp or call 718-576-0338 or email info@energizedliving.org and you'll be added to the list so that you can get future updates. Okay, so here's the visual for how to relate to the connection between our inside and our outside. Okay, everyone here has at one time or another been to a concert or a production, a play. So you know how there's a stage and then there's a curtain in front of the stage? And sometimes the stage even has a few layers and there's a few layers of curtains that open up. So imagine a stage that's all set up with a story that's unfolding. And on the stage, there are many props and there's a whole cast of characters, a whole bunch of different actresses or actors, and the actors are interacting with each other. It's a busy, busy, active scene. Now imagine that while all of that is happening on the stage with all these actors and interacting with each other and with the props, all that is going on, the curtains are closed. And in front of that curtain, all you see is one or two props, and you see one or two of the actors, you see one of the actresses sitting on a chair, and that actress is about to sing. There's so much going on, but you don't see it because the curtains are closed. What do you see? What do you see? You only see that person in front. And now in one of her ears, she has a little, it's called an in-ear. An in-ear. It's a little listening device that's almost very hard to detect. It's almost invisible, but this allows her to be in touch with the director of the show. And her director from backstage is telling her what to do. Stand up, sit down, turn around, start the song. No, wait a minute, we're about to start in a second. Now, watching in the audience, you don't see the director. We just see the one actress and the few props. We don't see behind the curtains to all the things that are going on there. We don't see the director talking into the actress's ear, telling her what to do. It seems as if the actress is kind of on her own. She's doing her own thing. And it's unconnected to anything else. Or really, there is nothing that that actress is doing that is not 100% coordinated with her director. And this stage is a good visual for what our inner world is like. When we look at ourselves and we only see the fact that we are doing whatever we're doing, or the fact that something is happening to us, or even the fact that we are feeling a certain way, there's a whole story happening behind the curtain of our bodies on the inside. There's a whole story happening there. There's, I'm using the actresses and the characters of the play to beliefs and memories and experiences and wounds and hurts that are all interacting with each other and busy, triggered and triggering each other and lighting up and making noise and pushing forward to the forefront of our consciousness. And then there's a director. The director is our power of choice. Every single one of us has a director. There's nothing that we don't do, nothing that we say or do, and nothing even that we think happens without the director, our power of choice, making that decision and choosing it. Most of the time, the curtains are closed and we do not see the director. To say that in English, most of the time we make choices without even being aware that we just made a choice, right? Our director tells us instructs us to do something. Our power of choice makes a decision and we act on it, but we don't even realize that we just made a choice. It happens beneath the layers of our consciousness. It happens subconsciously, behind the curtains of our bodies, behind the curtains of what we are aware of in our minds and in our hearts. To be aware of it, to know it, to work with it, to take an active role in writing the script, we need to pull aside that curtain and see what's going on. Inside our minds, there are many different beliefs. There are rules that we learned from when we're very little, rules that we still follow. There are, to use the visuals, and these beliefs and these perspectives and these rules, they influence our decisions. They influence our viewpoint. They influence our mindset. Remember, we said that our director is our power of choice. So our director gets information from our rules and from our memories and from our wounds and from the values that we hold dear. So when we are in a situation, we don't even realize we're making a choice about our perspective. It happens instantly, and it happens behind the curtains of our consciousness. Here's a quick story where we could see how beliefs and values can completely change the experience. And I love this little story because I think it's something we can all relate to. And for those of you who have been here before, you heard the story from me. Give me another example, okay? Just when I'm thinking of an example, this one, it's so simple that and relatable that I'm gonna go with it. So Chani is a young mother. She's baking challah in her kitchen, and she realizes, whoops, it's almost 3 o'clock. Her preschooler is coming home on the bus. She's gonna run downstairs and get the preschooler off the bus. On her way down the stairs, she notices that her skirt is dirty, and she's like, oh no, what kind of idiot am I? What kind of loser am I going out with a dirty skirt? So embarrassing. She gets outside, and while she's waiting for the bus, she sees a neighbor coming out of the house across the street, the neighbor who lives in the perfect house with the perfect garden and the perfect looking children, whose husband has the perfect job, who has the perfect, everything is perfect. And this lady is walking towards, Heidi is her name. Heidi's walking towards Chani. And Chani says, hi. And Heidi doesn't respond at all. So Chani says again, hi. And Chani doesn't respond. And Heidi doesn't respond to Chani. And Chani says, okay, this is ridiculous. She is embarrassed to be associated with me. The bus comes, she pulls her kid off the bus, goes upstairs, and is so hurt. and so upset. And if you ask her, like I did, why are you so hurt? Why are you so upset? What just happened? She'll say, you know what? I really want to be liked. And that person just totally rejected me. She ignored me. Or well, she probably because of my skirt, she just doesn't want to have anything to do with me. Because I was dirty. Just because I'm dirty, she just doesn't want to have any. Wasn't wearing a clean skirt, so she doesn't want to have anything to do with me. That's so nice, right? It's so not nice. So what happened first in this story? The outside or the inside? In Chani's story, she had a belief and a rule that someone who walks outside with a dirty skirt should be ashamed of herself. Her inside affected how she experienced her outside, right? And then her outside confirmed and strengthened her inside. And those are complicated words, but basically what I mean is that she walked into the experience holding on. Inside her, she had a belief that because that was triggered, it was active because she was in the situation where the rule applied. And the rule is, if you walk out of your house with a dirty skirt, shame on you. Okay, and because she was walking out of the house with a dirty skirt, she felt ashamed. So that was what was going on in her inside, and then her outside confirmed her belief, confirmed her experience, confirmed her shame, perpetuated her shame. And if I ask you, if she would walk into the situation with a totally different rule about that skirt, what might have been different? Imagine if her skirt was clean, or if it totally didn't bother her that her skirt was clean. Imagine if she looked beautiful, and more importantly, imagine if she felt beautiful, if she felt good about herself, if she felt full, complete, dignified, I'm a good person, and I'm inherently good. I have value because I have value. I am respectable. Imagine if she's walking into that situation with that good inside feeling. And then what happens? Her neighbor comes out, that perfect looking neighbor with the perfect house and the perfect, all that perfection, right? And I'm saying the word perfect because I think we're all intimidated when somebody else looks perfect. So, but she comes outside and that neighbor, ID, passes by, and ID doesn't say hello. If Chani felt really good about herself walking into that situation, what would Chani's response be to being ignored? I think she would probably say, hey, Heidi must be really busy. I hope everything's okay with her. She's so distracted. She's so in her own self. It's so interesting. She didn't even see me. Wow. She walked into the situation with inside strength, then she would have a more pleasant experience. And that pleasant experience would feed right back into her good feelings that she has about herself inside. From the outside, it looks like she was ignored and there was no other way but I'm only human. If someone ignores me, I'm going to be upset. From another perspective, it's like the reason why I'm upset is because she ignored me. That was really mean. But if we look inside, the reason why I'm upset is because I have this belief about skirts. I feel about dirty skirt, even if I'm in the middle of baking challah, even if I'm doing something so beautiful and precious and good, right? I am shameworthy if my skirt is dirty and I walk outside with it for a minute. Having that belief is what triggered Chani's emotions. Having that belief is what made her feel bad. It had nothing to do with what ID said. Now, I know that many of you are listening are going to say, well, what if ID actually on purpose did ignore her? So we're going to talk about that. What happens when people are actually doing something mean? When people are actually being objectively rude, and it's not just my perspective, but anybody would say that that was mean, that was cruel, that was cold-hearted, right? We're going to talk about that later. Right now, I'm talking about the day-to-day interactions, because I think that that's a good starting point, because everybody has experiences where like someone says something, someone does something, and we get upset in a way that we ourselves are aware that, whoa, what just happened to me? And when that happens, the first place to look is not at the other person, but inside our own hearts. And I want to just add to this, sometimes it could be that when we're tired or when we're worn down and we didn't eat healthy food and we didn't take care of ourselves physically, our inside is going to fall apart and get triggered and activated much, much more easily. And it's going to be exaggerated. But still, we still have a lot of work to do. The work is not just, well, I should never be tired and then I'll never be upset. No, because we'll often be tired. Yeah, everyone should try to get more sleep. Everyone, all women should, we should really take good care of ourselves. At the same time, everyone's going to have sleepless nights. Everyone's going to have times when you're busy, when you're on overload, for whatever reason it is. And so we need to, if we want to be able to show up to our lives with love and connection, it's not just about the outside. We've got to work on the inside. And that inside is all about our beliefs and our values. Now, just to be clear, all of that, our beliefs and values are not just in our mind, they very much influence our hearts and even our bodies. Because when we value something, we have emotions around it. We have physical sensations around it. It's not just intellectual, it's sensual, it's experience in our bodies and in our emotions, in our hearts. And that's something, we're moving on to another point here, that our values trigger our emotions, our value system. So we talked about rules in our minds, but values is even deeper than rules. Values means I think this is important, and that is so important to me that I actually have automatic emotions about it, and my body reacts automatically to it as well. So let me give you an example, okay? Values might be being clean, having those clean clothing. Values might be financial success, education, spiritual growth, intelligence, happy children, going on good vacations. And everyone has different values, right? But then there's something about values that I want to point out, and that is that many of us have the same values, but we have different reactions to experiences that touch on those values. And the question is why, right? All of us, for example, value wearing clean clothing. We all want to wear clean clothing when we go outside of our house and even when we're inside our house. But why is it that Chani felt so ashamed of herself when her skirt was dirty? Was it because she's so clean? No, because in the story, she's the type of person who has no problem leaving, she has no problem leaving dishes in her sink. She has no problem actually wearing the dirty skirt. It was only a problem for her when she was on her way out the door. And so this brings us to a different key concept, and then we'll move on to practical strategies of what we're going to do with all this awareness. The key concept here is that there are two big ideas that form our deepest values. And these values have the biggest impact on our emotions. They're so big and they're so important, they're so fundamental, they have the ability to override other values. They have the ability to cancel out, to literally cancel out and run right over, trample upon other values. And what that looks like is, for Adina, valued communication. But then something inside her happened that ran right over and canceled out her value for meaningful communication, and she lashed out at Sarah. What is that? What is that? Let's talk about that for a minute. These two values that could cancel out any other values are power and identity. Power means who holds the power to give me what I need or to hold back what I need. That's power. Power is who has the power to control me, to control my life, to control the outcome, to control the situation, to control whether I have my needs or not. That's the first big thing, the value of power. And the second big value is the value of identity. Who am I? Okay. You see, we all value having money. You need money to live. But some people, if it's not just that they value money because they need something to live, but we value money. It's in America, there's an expression, well, how much is that person worth? Right? How much are they worth usually means what's their financial bank account like? How much are they worth? And it's not random. The reason why is because in American culture, identity is very much linked with money. And our culture has not at all escaped that pathetic version of identity. Our culture, our frum world, the Jewish world has not escaped that. I have no other word than pathetic, tragic culture where if I have money, then I'm a someone. And if I don't have money, then I'm a nobody, right? Because money is associated with identity. But really, anything that we associate with identity, anything that has the power to make me or break me, when that thing is activated, when that rule is touched upon, I will respond with such ferociousness. When my identity is threatened, I will respond with such ferociousness that I will cancel out and overrun all my other values, right? So in Khani's story, it wasn't just that she valued wearing a clean skirt. She valued her clean clothing as part of her identity. A clean skirt has the power to make me a good person or a bad person. A clean skirt or a dirty skirt has the power to make me into a person that somebody else would probably want to ignore, would actually definitely want to ignore. In fact, she did ignore me because of my dirty skirt, right? That's a whole different kind of value. That's not just a value. That's a value that's connected to my very identity, to my core essence of my soul. That's what makes me who I am. That's what makes me a good person or a bad person. That's what makes me filled with dignity and a sense of wholesome goodness or shame and just really feeling stuck in despair and not good enough, inadequacy. I remember once my married daughter was looking for fruits in the fridge. And she's like, Ma, do you have, and it was a Friday night, I'm looking for fruits. Do you have any of this fruit? She was like an apple or whatever. And then she's like, oh yeah, I found it. And I said, yay, I'm a good mother. And she looked at me, and of course she's heard these things before. She said, do you mean to tell me that the fact that you have an apple in your fridge makes you into a good person? Oh, okay. I just wanted to get that straight. And of course we both laughed. But do you hear what I'm saying? I felt like, yay, I'm a good person because I have an apple in my fridge and somebody else needs that apple. I was joking. It wasn't really a deep value for me, but it used to be. And in Khani's story, it definitely was. And if we look at Adina's story, we're going to see that was also what happened in her story. And when you look at your story of what gets you upset and you ask yourself, what do I value about me? What makes me into a good person? Or what makes me into a good friend? What makes me a good mother, a good wife? When our identity is threatened, we cancel out all our other values. And that's why you have two very nice people in a marriage acting obnoxious to each other, because when their identity is threatened, boy, everything else goes out the window. And they're both really nice people, and people looking out from the outside scratch their heads and wonder and say, what happened over there? I like him, I like her. They're both such nice people. But the investment, because they're so invested in each other and their core identity is so activated, so easily triggered, their core identity could easily also be threatened. And so they respond to each other from that place of fight or flight instead of love and connection. Or to put it in other words, they respond to each other out of a fear of being canceled, a fear of being made into a bad person, instead of the courage and the wholesome goodness that comes with knowing that you're inherently good and not feeling threatened every time someone, says something or does something that's not absolutely positively respectful. Okay, so whatever we value as our identity, whatever we value as the thing that makes us into a someone, or whatever we value as the thing that makes me a good mother, a bad mother, a good wife, a bad wife, a good worker, a good employee, that thing or that quality drives us in the deepest, strongest, most powerful way. And when that value is threatened, or when my rule about that value is violated, I will try to do anything to protect it. I will override my natural sense of what matters to me, my rational self, and what doesn't matter to me. My internal director, my power of choice, my conscious choice goes offline. I will be focused on protecting my core self. And in the story with Adina and Sarah, after speaking with Adina, I realized, she helped me realize that she values being kind to other people. And this is not just any value for her. This is a core value. This is what makes her into a good person. It's not just like, yeah, whenever I have time, I like to make people happy. Whenever it fits into my schedule, whenever it works for me, whenever I could stretch a little. No, 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 no. If I cannot be kind, I am a bad person. So when Sarah asks if her daughter can join, Adina knows, absolutely, she knows right away that she has to say no. She has to say no. And that's going to make Sarah upset. And being able to make people happy is what makes Adina into a someone. If I cannot please Sarah, then I am a piece of dust. If I make Sarah upset, then I am a nobody. And Adina had no awareness of that value. And she had no awareness of how that value was influencing, was making her feel so bad. Just the thought of saying no already makes Adina feel like she's a bad person who does not deserve any love or kindness. And being there in that place really hurts. It hurts so much to have our identity threatened. It hurts so much. It makes Adina angry. Why are you doing this to me? Why are you making me feel this way? I don't want to feel this way. She doesn't realize that it's her beliefs, it's her values, it's her sense of identity, and how her sense of identity is all about making someone else happy. And if I can't make you happy, I'm a bad person. And if I don't know that, then the fact that I need to say no to you makes me feel really, really bad. And I have no idea why I feel really bad, but you are the one who is making me feel really bad. So I hate you and I'm angry at you and you deserve this yelling. When you look at that whole story, when Adina yelled at Sarah, if you look from the outside, what you see is that Sarah did something upsetting, and that's why Adina got upset, right? But if you pull aside the curtain and you look at her inner world, inside the mind and heart of Adina, inside her deepest values, there's a whole different story. The reason why she's upset is because her inside is so insecure. Her identity has been threatened. Her core self, her very essence, the thing that makes me a someone, the thing that makes me good is about to be smashed into smithereens. And you're doing it to me. But Adina doesn't see it. She doesn't look at it. She doesn't even realize that it's there. The curtains are completely closed. So that is what happened. It's like there's this little girl inside Adina who desperately wants to protect Adina from being a bad person. And this little girl wants to stand up and save Adina from the horrible pain that she feels that she cannot tolerate. I can't make somebody happy. I am a bad person. The little girl inside of Adina wants to protect her from that horrible pain of losing her value and losing her identity. And that little girl is so desperate to protect Adina, she runs up and kicks the director off the stage. And what that looks like is overriding her other values, overriding her rational self. Why did it happen? Not because of anything that Sarah said, not because of anything that Sarah did. It's because on the inside, Adina's core identity was threatened, and that caused her to override all her other values. Her value of being kind and communicating nicely, even though she knew it very well, and even though it was also very precious to her, but that was a value that's precious. That's a nice thing to do. It wasn't about her identity. Her identity was about being able to make someone happy. And that's why that when that was threatened, her identity was threatened, and everything else went out the window. And this is true really in our own lives as well. Whatever we value as our identity will trigger our deepest, strongest, most intense, ferocious emotions. And then that intense emotion will override our rational values and our rational self. Now, it's nice to know all of this, but how can we benefit from this awareness, right? How can we make this practical for ourselves and for our relationships? So first of all, I want to say that awareness in itself is already huge, because without awareness, it's like we're wearing blindfolds. I want to just take a moment to summarize, okay? When we walk into an experience, what's happening is that what is happening on the outside wakes up beliefs and values that we have on the inside, in our hearts and minds. And sometimes those beliefs and values are subconscious. And that is what triggers our emotions. And that is what guides our choices, informs our choices. It's our beliefs and our values. And within the beliefs and values, the one value, or rather the two values that trigger the most intense emotions are the value of who has the power of control, right? Whenever you feel like someone is controlling you, all of a sudden, boom, you react like a monster. At least I do. When someone is controlling, when you feel helpless, when you feel like there's no choices, that the reality, someone is taking away your choices, someone is keeping you stuck, you hate that person. That's a very, very strong emotion, right? And the second big value is the value of our identity, the value of who we are. What makes me a someone? What makes me a good person? What makes me a bad person? And within every relationship, what makes me a good wife? What makes me a good mother? What makes me a bad mother? What makes me a bad person? And depending on what our values are, when those values are triggered, and especially when our core identity, the rules that we have, I'm only a good person if everybody likes me. I'm only a good person if I make a good impression. I'm only a good person if people say nice things about me, right? I'm only a good person if I absolutely succeed and I never make mistakes. If all my stuff comes out perfect and I look like I'm managing to do it all. I'm only a good person if I do everything. If those rules are violated, then we explode in a way that overrides our more rational self. So awareness of all of this is already huge. It's already huge, because without awareness, it's like we're wearing blindfolds. Why am I upset? I don't know. I'm upset because I'm human, or I'm upset because that person is an idiot. That person is annoying. Okay. Without awareness, we only see the outside. And so it will seem that everything we feel in our hearts is caused by the outside. All the power is in the outside, and all the power to change will also be on the outside, because the outside is beyond our control. We feel like this keeps us stuck. We're stuck. Once we're only limited to the outside, our unhealthy relationships and our unpleasant relationships, our unpleasant emotions make us feel stuck. And then on top of all the unpleasantness, we feel a sense of despair and hopelessness, which makes things even worse, right? And then we hurt ourselves as we hurt other people. So I just want to say, by the way, again, that there are times when the outside is bad. But even when the outside is bad, that badness is doubled and tripled when the inside is bad. When the inside is bad, when I feel insecure, when my identity depends on other people liking me, that means I have a very, very, very flimsy sense of identity that I will often feel bad, right? And that means all my unpleasant experiences will be much, much worse. When our inside is strong, we can engage with that challenge. And it is a challenge very often. There are really challenging behaviors that we encounter. Very, very challenging circumstances, very challenging situations, very unpleasant and very unhealthy. But when we could engage with that challenge from a place of strength, that's a whole different story. So, but we'll talk about this later at length. But I just want to put out there that I'm not ignoring that. Sometimes there really is bad and we need strength for that. What I am talking about is the basics of having a healthy relationship is being able to look inside our own hearts whenever we're feeling bad, whenever we're feeling sad, whenever we're feeling stuck in misery, resentment, and despair. We want to look inside and we want to ask ourselves two important questions. Number one is, who is holding the power? And what do I believe about myself? But I'm getting ahead of myself. I want to go through the action steps, okay? Number one, for whoever gained awareness tonight for the very first time, or has somewhat of an understanding, at least, of what awareness looks like, and even if you're experienced in having awareness, it's awareness is something we need to grow. Awareness is something we need to develop. And we develop it by slowing down every once in a while, not just when you're upset. Of course, yes, it's also helpful to do it when you're upset, but not just when you're upset. Whenever you have time, slow down, put down your phone so that it's stopping to make so much noise. Our phones make so much noise. It's like like a constant chattering, a buzz in our brains. And some people have the constant noise of the phone. I'm not just talking about a smartphone. I'm even talking about a regular phone, and even not a cell phone. But like, just stop the noise once in a while and be with ourselves in our own space, and consciously pull aside that curtain and ask ourselves, what am I thinking? What do I believe about myself? Just random. What are some of my values? What is my rule about? I'm cleaning. I'm working so hard to clean. Hey, what do I believe about cleaning? What's driving me here? What is the energy? What's the belief? What's the value? Slow down and become aware. What emotions are coming up for me? What words can I use to describe this? What is my rule about this situation? When you ask yourself these questions, you'll grow awareness, and that in itself is already makes a huge difference, because once you have awareness, you see how the system works. You can also grab the handle of that system and make changes. And we'll learn more about how to make changes. But right now, it's so important to just grow that awareness and be able to grab the handle of what you're, just to have that awareness to see what's going on. And eventually from there, we'll be able to make changes to what's going on. So that's the first very important thing, action step. Slow down and pull aside the curtain. Consciously pull aside the curtains. Look inside your mind, look inside your heart, listen to the thoughts, listen to that tape recorder randomly. And when you're reflecting on your day, what rule was that? What did I believe about myself in that situation? What did I believe about the other person? How did I value myself? Or what made me a bad person? I felt so bad. What was the thing that made me a bad person? Number two, the second action step is, whenever you're feeling disempowered, become aware. That's a real time. When you're feeling so schwach, like totally weak, that's when you want to ask yourself, then and you're totally broken, then you know that one of your core values was touched. One of your core values was activated. It was triggered. And those two are power. Who has the power to control my life? Who has the power to give me what I need or to hold back from what I need? And identity, what do I believe about myself in context of the situation? What in this situation, what makes me a good person? What makes me a bad person? What value makes me a someone? And what rule or what value will make me into a nobody? That's number two. Whenever you feel very intense emotions, know that one of your two core values was touched, was triggered, and start becoming aware of what that is by asking yourself those questions. Number three is to move from judgment to compassion. Okay, judgment and self-hate is, okay, I didn't talk about this, but I want to put it out there very, very quickly, because we're running out of time, and we'll explore it in greater length next week, Mirz Hashem. So we've been talking about, the values that are linked with our identity. And everybody has something else. For most of us, it's about making a good impression and pleasing other people and, getting the gold stars and getting the rewards and being labeled a success or being labeled a failure. That's what we associate with our identity. For some of us, it's about our weight, our money, just external things like that. Nothing that has to do with our real character. And why is that? And what can we do about it? Because all of those reasons, any value, anything that we make into our identity will always be conditional. Our identity and the value of our identity will always be flimsy. And when a wind blows, it will blow out the window. The Baal Tanya says in Tanya chapter 32, Tanya Perek Lamed Beis, there's only one thing that allows for absolute unconditional love. And that is when we value our true self, our neshama, more than anything else about who we are. When we value our neshama, when the value of our neshama makes us into a someone, then we have an identity that is unshakable, that's untouchable, that is always, always, always good. And it's not fluctuating like the stock market. It's not fluctuating. It doesn't change. You know, if my identity is about making a good impression, then I am a good person when I make a good impression. I'm a bad person when I make a bad impression. Okay. If my identity is about achievement, then I'm a good person when I achieve something important. And I'm a failure, an absolute reject, and a loser when I experience the opposite of achievement. And that's the same with anything we have in our lives. If my identity is because I can cook well, or I have the inside scoop on every story that happens, you know, then that's flimsy. That will inevitably go out the window. Hashem gave each and every one of us a true identity. And the more we're aware of that true identity, the more we bring that identity close to home, close to our hearts, close to our minds, close to real awareness, the more unconditional our love for ourselves will be. The more unconditional our dignity, our sense of worthiness, our sense of respectability, respect for ourselves will be. And so for Chani, if she didn't have that rule about her identity, if her rule about her identity was, I'm a good person because I have an neshama, so then her dirty skirt is just like a piece of snow that landed on the rooftop. It's nothing. It's there, but it doesn't take up any space. It doesn't cause a storm of emotion and self-judgment and hate. And in Adina's story, if, you know, it's very nice to value being nice to other people. It's a beautiful value. But the minute that value becomes the value of me as a person, then my value will very often be threatened. When you ask me to do something that I'm not able to do, I will get angry at you because now you made me into a bad person. And I'll be so stressed and I will hate you for making me into a bad person. And when I try my best, you know, and I make a good supper and I work so hard, and my husband asks me to pass the salt, like we said in that example before, I will be mad at him because now he made me into a bad cook. Now he made me into a bad cook on top of all the busyness, and I worked so hard a whole day, and now he made me into a bad cook. But if being a good cook and being able to salt and season the soup just to perfection is a nice quality, but it's not who I am, then okay, he said pass the salt, no problem, sure, here's the salt, right? And again, in that story, she reacted that way, Dafka, because she was so tired. But I hope you get what I'm saying. If Adina valued herself as a person, I am a good person because I have an neshama, because I am respectable. No matter what else is going on around me, no matter, even before I do anything, I'm already good. I'm wonderful. I'm awesome. I'm beautiful. Yeah, I value doing something good for someone else. Oh, when she made that phone call, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I really can't accommodate your daughter. And I do feel bad, but I don't feel threatened. My identity is not at risk of being smashed to smithereens, right? I don't respond with this ferocious anger because nothing happened. Nothing happened. So what we want to try to do is develop awareness of our true self, of our true awesome self, of our true identity, and really identify with that. Because each of us comes to adulthood, or most of us come to adulthood without a sense of identifying with my neshama. Yeah, I have a neshama. It's a nice, I have a neshama, very nice. It's a nice thing that I have. It's not who I am. Who I am is everything else about me. Who I am is my talents. Who I am is my hard work. Who I am is my good choices that I think are good, that everyone else thinks are good. My neshama, yeah, it's nice. It's nice. It's my potential. It's something, a gift that Hashem gave. It's not who I am. And because we don't have the awareness of our true self, we invent an identity. And that invented identity will always be conditional, will always fluctuate, will always be weak, will inevitably feel threatened by other people, by situations, and by circumstances that are completely beyond our control. So the more attached we are with our true identity, the less energy we have around our invented self. I think we all have an invented self. We all have certain things that make us into a good person or a bad person, or a good mother or a bad mother, or a successful employee or a successful member of society, or not. But how much of our identity is attached to our neshama? As much as we can attach our identity to neshama, that directly takes away from the energy that we're going to be impacted by our invented identity. And the less we have an awareness of our true self, the more attached we are to our invented self, and the more triggered we get by other people. And the more often we will find ourselves feeling resentful, feeling totally broken, unsettled, angry, and responding from a place of like the whole world is out to get us, that people are just annoying, that things are just not right, and that we can't ever get our act together. We can't ever get it right. So how do we do that? Action step number 3 was to move from judgment to compassion. And the reason why I want to say to move from judgment to compassion is because one of the greatest, I will say, the curse of our invented self is that we become so attached to our invented self that we hate ourselves when we're not that ideal version of ourselves. And from that place, we're angry at ourselves. Why did I forget that stamp? Oh, I'm such an idiot. I'm such a loser. We talked, if you listen to the tape that's going on in your mind, how often you beat yourself up, every time you're mean to yourself, every time you call yourself names, every time you're angry at yourself, it's because there's an invented self that you feel you're supposed to be. And when you're not that version of yourself that you think you're supposed to be, or that other people told you you're supposed to be, you get mad at yourself. Why couldn't I remember to take the cookies out of the oven on time? Why couldn't I stick up for myself? Why couldn't I say the right thing? Why couldn't I just get in front of them? Why couldn't I get it all done, right? We're so angry to ourselves. And so the first thing to do, if we want to start holding ourselves and attaching ourselves to our true identity, is to notice every time you're being cruel and hating yourself and really beating up on yourself and criticizing yourself and saying, you should have done this. You should have known better. You should have, right? Just stop and say, you know what? I'm going to give myself a hug right now. I'm actually wonderful. I'm actually good. I am trying my best. I am working hard. And if I'm not, it was okay. Forgive yourself. Relate to yourself with compassion instead of judgment and self-hate. And link that with the voice of your neshama. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm wonderful. Okay, I made a mistake. Next. Just let's become allergic. Let's become very allergic to and sensitive to when we speak unkindly to ourselves. When we relate to ourselves with anger and judgment and negativity instead of compassion and all embracing love. Because if we want to bring love and connection into our relationships, we really have to stop hating on ourselves. Any negative talk is hating on ourselves. And we want to become allergic to that. So notice when you make a mistake and you say, oh, I'm such an idiot. Why couldn't I do that? Why? As if there's a reason. Why couldn't you? Because you couldn't, because you didn't. Relate to yourself with just love and compassion and goodness instead of that, judgment and anger. And that was number 3. And then the fourth thing is, which is really big, and I'm going to start with it and we'll continue more about it next week, is the fourth thing is we want to really get to know and form a sense of real attachment, of real consciousness about our true self, real involvement, real, like, to start experiencing it and in a very real way, to start identifying with it, to own it, to hold the power of our neshama, to hold the beauty, the gorgeousness, the awesomeness of who we really are. That part of Hashem that is the core of our identity, to start identifying ourselves. When we have a diamond ring, and when you put a diamond onto a gold ring, the gold ring is not a gold ring that has a diamond. It's a diamond ring. Why? Because the diamond is so much more precious than the gold that it changes the nature of the gold. It changes the nature of the ring. We know it changes the identity. It's not a gold ring that has a diamond. It's a diamond ring because the diamond is that much more precious. Now, how much more so? 1,000,000 times over. The value of an actual part of Hashem within us is so much bigger, so much more bigger than anything we could possibly accomplish. Any talent we have, any skill, any yichus, anything that we have, our money, our success stories, our failures, our weaknesses, even our past negative experiences. Our part of Hashem within us is so much bigger than anything else about us that it needs to define us. So how do we start defining ourselves with that? How do we start owning that preciousness? How do we live with that energy? Because if we could live with that energy, we could come into every situation from a position of strength, from a position of dignity, of worthiness. And yeah, we'll bump into challenges, but we'll have that inner strength so that we can engage in those challenges. We can engage in those experiences from that position of goodness, of wholesome dignity that's untouchable. So how do we do that? I'm going to say one thing, and then I want to take a little bit of time. The last 15 minutes we'll use for questions. And Mirz Hashem, next week, I will try to make the actual talk a little bit shorter. Today, there were so many big ideas. I didn't know which one to leave out to make it shorter, but Mirz Hashem, next week, and in the future weeks, the talk part will be a half hour, and then we'll have full-fledged time for interactive discussion, questions and answers. But here's one thing that we could do every single day. Every day, we can say, Moda ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam, shechazarta bi nishmasi b'chemla, rabba emunasecha. Every one of us says these words every day, and if we don't, we could start saying it. They're transformative words. They're words that if we think about them, even for 15 seconds, we start forming an attachment with our core identity, because these words mean there's something about me. We wake up in the morning and we say hello to the world. But even before we say hello to the world, even when our eyes are barely open, it's who am I? Who just woke up? You know who just woke up? A carrier of Hashem's light. A girl, a person who is designed, defined, empowered by none other than Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the King of all kings, the Master of the universe, the Creator of the universe, Hashem Himself, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He is the one who designs me. He defines me. I am a carrier of His light. And everything that I do today is going to be powered by Him. As I walk, as I talk, I am carrying His light, and I am carried by it as I carry it. That's what we say every single morning. And if we think about it for 15 seconds, just that in itself will make a huge difference to our day. And every day, add new words. Think about it from a different angle. Like a diamond, you hold it up to the light, all of a sudden it sparkles in all different places around the room. Hold your identity up to new lights every day. Try to think of new words. Because I have an neshama, what does it mean about me? What qualities does it give me? I'm majestic. I'm a light. I'm beautiful. I'm gorgeous. I'm awesome. I'm unstoppable. I'm invincible. I'm fill in the blanks. Come up with your own words. Tell me what they are. You know, the more you do that, the more you form a personal connection with it. I also want to suggest to start talking about this with friends and relatives and people in your life, because talking about it makes it more real. Imagine if each of us can become a force of change in the world. When we start talking about ourselves in this way, when we start saying, you know, I thought about my neshama and I realized that really, oh my goodness, I'm a carrier of Hashem's light. Wow. And if we can bring that into our ordinary day-to-day conversations, and you know, this is what happened to me. I was putting something in the fridge and it fell. And I started to say to myself, oh, you're such a slob. But then I realized that's no way to talk to the daughter of the king. That's no way to talk to somebody really awesome and wonderful. And that's not nice. So I made a rewind, and I tried to play that minute again. Right? Imagine if these little tidbits, words, can become expressions, experiences, shared experiences, could become part of our day-to-day conversations. We could change the dynamic of how we see ourselves on a global level. And we could make it so much easier for our children to start seeing themselves in this beautiful, positive light. And we could really make a huge difference. Next week, Mirza Hashem, we will explore this at length. And now we'll also go into how do we own that dignity? And how does that play itself out in our experiences, in our interactions with other people? Okay, I'm going to go through the chat very quickly. I love what was going on in this chat. It's such great sharing. What happens when your spouse holds you responsible for his happiness and reactions, even though you explain that he is in charge and responsible for his own reaction? That is a great question. And we'll explore this at length. I think it's in week 3, but we could just to say it now, that is challenging. So we have to then attach ourselves to our true value with even greater strength. And we want to relate to that spouse from a place of compassion, because they don't have awareness and they're really lost. They don't have any inside power. And let's not judge them. Just be thankful that you do have awareness and that you do recognize that you're responsible for your emotions. And maybe in a moment of calm, you could have a conversation about it. But when it's negative and when you're feeling judgmental, that's not the good time to have the conversation. We'll talk about that more. That was an excellent question. Let's say you realize that your inner person craves unconditional love and attention and takes every insult their kids and husband says as hurtful because they don't have a strong sense of self. How can a person build their sense of self when they've been broken so many times? A mother that cannot discipline her kids because she wants to please them and afraid to be the bad one. So this is exactly what we're talking about. This is exactly what we're talking about. This is the starting point. To build yourself on the inside, start with the Maida'ani. Start with becoming aware of what you believe about yourself. And start with noticing when you're talking in a way of self-hate. And next week, Emir Tashem will build on that. But this is where you start. This is exactly the start. We're building a core self. During these 4 weeks, Emir Tashem, the next 3 weeks, we're going to be building a core self, and we're going to explore how to bring that core self, how to engage from the place of that core self in all kinds of our relationships, including kids that are so difficult to discipline. But the first thing is, make it a priority to develop your core self. Make that your first order of business. Spend time every day thinking about it. Try to get into there's a lot of groups of people discussing the book, Your Awesome Self. If you can start a group, start a group with even 2-3 people and discuss these things over time. Let's just make something very clear. However old you are, it took years to get here. It's not going to happen overnight that you'll wake up one morning and you will feel like a whole different person. But the beginning of the change will absolutely happen the minute you take it on to start developing your core self and start doing these things. Number one, developing awareness of what's going on inside. Number two, that Maida'ani meditation, literally thinking about Hashem's light that's within you, giving it new words every day, visualizing it, thinking about it, thinking about yourself in context of that beautiful self. And most importantly, talk to other people about your growth. Talk to other people about your growing awareness. Talk to people who are on the same journey, because that will speed up, that will literally, take you off the roller coaster like nothing else in the world. But don't expect changes overnight. Don't beat yourself up for beating yourself up. Take it slow. Be really, truly compassionate to yourself and recognize that this is a process. It's not going to take forever, but it's not going to happen overnight. And trust the process. There's so many people who went on this journey and are, so much stronger today because of it. So you will get there 100% with Hashem's help, but start the work. How do we push away the negative that comes from the outside self? We're going to talk about that. Okay, there are some really good questions. Here's what we're going to do. Next week, we're going to start off with questions instead of the other way around, because I know that the questions is really where the growth happens. And that's really where the work is. So next week, Be'ezras Hashem, we're going to start off, we'll start off with a quick review of what we said so far. Then we'll go to questions, and then I'll give a message that summarizes what we learned, but we'll learn through the questions. I want to thank everybody for joining. I also want to thank you for inviting your friends. We had a beautiful group here today, and it's thanks to each of you. I see some familiar friends. Thank you for telling your friends about it. And it's a win-win when you tell your friends about it, because they're happy and you're happy. Now you have someone who you can discuss these ideas with, and that makes such a big difference. It's really, really friendship is such a big blessing, but friends who really share a journey of growth is there's nothing else. It's so precious. So thank you again for joining. If you're here and you're not on the mailing list, email to info@energizedliving.org or WhatsApp 718-576-0338. Or you could text to 718-576-0338 and you'll get updates. And thank you again. Thank you again. And also big thanks for everyone who wrote these questions, because I'm really excited about starting from these questions next week. They're really, they're good. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.